Hey guys, how's it going? It's That Nerd Ryan here, and welcome to part two, I guess, of our Canon versus Legends podcast of the Old Republic versus the High Republic. Last time we got a little too carried away about the High Republic, so Ricardo's going to do most of the talking today about the Old Republic. There's going to be like half an update about the High Republic since I'm starting to read Rising Storm now. But yeah. So, how's it going, Ricardo?
It's going good. How about yourself?
Pretty good. Pretty tired, but pretty good.
Yeah.
Yep. So, just a really quick thing that I wanted to add with the whole Phase 1, Wave 2, I guess, for our people on Instagram is I'm reading Rising Storm right now. I'm 30 chapters in of a 76 chapter book, so I'm about halfway done. So yeah, just it's kind of the same thing as Race to Crash Point Tower. It's because they're both happening at the same time. So yeah, basically the Nile are bombing a parade, and bombing a festival. Sorry. So yeah, that's basically all that needs to be added, and the Nile and the Drengir are working together. So, let's talk about the Old Republic. You're the expert on that, considering I only downloaded the Old Republic game, and it never worked on my computer.
Oh, God.
And I watched most of the cutscenes.
Well, for the Old Republic, I think the best place to start, in my opinion, is where the birth of I guess you could say, first official recognized Sith Emperor, which was back then when his born name was Tenebrae. And then as he got older, he ended up getting the moniker for the Sith Emperor for how powerful he became and wise he became from Marka Ragnos, which was at that time he was the leader of the Sith back in the very Old Republic, all those thousands of years ago. Mm-hmm. And he gave Tenebrae the title of Lord Vitiate. Mm-hmm. He ends up becoming the first official as he got older through many years, gained knowledge of the first official Sith Emperor that united all the Sith to battle against the Jedi at the time. Because back then, like I said, back in the Old Republic, the Jedi and Sith were in a constant war every time that eventually, as the years went on, the Sith were losing and just getting decimated. So it took Lord Vitate to unite the Sith at the time to become the Emperor to keep it from being extinct. Mm. And then, which I think, right after he's born, about the same thing is 150 years, the Great Hyperspace War takes place, which that also gets to the height of his power because the Jedi decided to make such a brilliant idea to try to invade their planet, the Sith home planet Korriban, to try to just finally eliminate them to try to get rid of the Sith. But at that time, Lord Vitate was still on his home planet, which his home planet was the home planet of Nathema, and he was building up his empire at the time. So he ended up getting all his. I think he did eventually that army he was building. He eventually turned into the. God, what was it? He ended up finding the Eternal Army.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the Sith Eternal.
Yes, because that's what that army began. He didn't have all, but that was the beginning steps to eventually getting the Eternal Army. But then he ended up just completely with his power he had at the time in his army, decimating the Sith and defending Korriban. And that's what helped officially have all the Sith unite against him. Mm-hmm. Because officially unite with them against the Jedi because they saw what he was able to do with his power against them.
And what I'm just going to ask because I mean, with the High Republic, it sounds like they're just kind of exploring hyperspace right now. So what are the hyperspace wars? Since we might not get that if we do go into the Old Republic in the current canon. Because from my understanding with the books is hyperspace isn't fairly new, but it's new enough to where they haven't really traveled to like the Outer Rim and stuff like that before safely.
Yeah, because in this year it was BTC 1347 is when the Great Hyperspace War took place, and like I said, that was when they were initially. Before hyperspace was really used, going to that far of the outreaches, they were just going from using it going planet to planet, and they didn't really use that. It wasn't really developed enough to be able to use to go galaxy to galaxies to discover more and more. And at that time, that's when I believe it was. The Republic at the time developed the first, I guess you could say, official hyperspace where they were able to travel to far galaxies, and that's how they ended up finding the remnants of the Sith in the Outer Realms and the Outreach lands. And that's how they started limiting it, because the Sith at that time didn't have that ability. They didn't have that to be able to fight back. So anytime Sith were being assaulted in another galaxy, there was not that much they could do at that time.
Gotcha.
So eventually Sith ended up, I think it was at one time in the hyperspace, where in the beginning of it, they ambushed a couple of Jedis that were the Republic at the time that had the hyperspace technology, took that and adapted it to their own ships to be able to fight back, to be able to defend themselves and fight back.
Gotcha.
But it was that was one of the bloodiest wars, because that wars lasted for like 1,000 years, because it was just constantly back and forth between them. Because the Jedi always thought, if we hit them at their main base, we'll be able to get rid of them. But then the Sith at that time knew that was going to happen, because both Mark Ragnos and Lord Vitate, they had the foresight ability where they could see into the future, use a dark power and see what was happening. They could ambush them. That's what was helping them win all these battles throughout the years.
Gotcha. So that kind of like what we saw in Clone Wars with, or the lost episodes of Clone Wars with Palpatine doing like Sith alchemy and stuff like that, or even Rebels with the world between worlds sort of thing. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, so it does sound like the High Republic is mirroring that a little bit with the Nile. I mean, obviously the Nile aren't Sith, as of yet that we know of. Because that was there was something that I left out that I completely forgot, is the leader of the Nile, Marchion Ro, has stolen a lightsaber. So now he's not a Force wielder, but he is a saber duelist. And then the Drengir are completely rooted in the dark side. It sounds like the Drengir in canon are from the Old Republic era, and they were kind of locked away. So, by any chance, do they mention anything like the Drengir in the Old Republic? Sentient, carnivorous murder plants, I guess, is the best.
Not really, because, like I said, the whole time during the Old Republic, it was just always it was always only mentioned the Sith fighting the Jedi at the time. They didn't really mention other beings. I mean, they mentioned. God, I can't remember. What's their name? The sisters, the
Night Sisters.
The Night Sisters. They're the ones that get mentioned, because a lot of this couple, I think it was both Mark Ragnos and Lord Vitate, found them and actually studied under them to enhance their Dark Force powers.
Gotcha.
And it's because, but the also thing is because at the war, I think at that time the war was going on. I think it was 150 years. The Sith were still losing. So what? Lord Vitate, which at the time, that's when he declared himself emperor, he ended up took his Sith force with the hyperspace technology into the deep space to try to regroup, and they ended up settling on the jungle world of Dromund Kaas, and where it took them about I think it's about over 13 centuries. That's where their main base Sith was based out of at that time. Trying to fight against the Republic back at the Republic during the time. And after that, it took about, I think it was another 120-ish years when after that they went to that deep space and were hiding on that planet where the Sith came back out to fight. Because like I said, they had at that time to regroup because they were just still losing because there's more Masters of Jedi in numbers compared to Sith at that time.
Yeah. And then the Sith also being greedy and self-absorbent, killing each
Yeah,
other to get
because
power isn't helping either.
Because like I said, another thing that Lord Visante did is he killed thousands to gain his power, both allies and enemies, and that's another reason why the Sith feared him at that time so much, because he just willingly sucked the Force energy and took it from other Sith to gain the more power. He didn't care if they were his right hand, his general or his most loyal servant. He still killed them if he wanted that power.
Exactly. Yeah.
But then the problem is when he did that, he lost a huge chunk of his Force. He never gained that Force back until he got the Eternal Army, which that was an endless machine army with all the ships that constantly built and everything.
Yeah, I remember a little bit of how they got those ships. Wasn't there like a sentient machine that was just for building ships that would constantly like pump that out, right?
That was the Starforge, yeah.
Yeah, Starforge. I couldn't think of it.
Starforge.
Yeah.
He was the first one that found it. He used it to build his ships because it would build him an endless army. But then after eventually when he died, as the centuries went on, nobody ever found it because it was in a hidden location, outer realm. And then if you remember, like whether it's the game or the books, the next person who found it was Darth Revan.
Right, which I was actually going to ask.
He tried to rebuild the Sith Empire using the Starforge to rebuild the ships and an army.
Exactly, which is perfect because I was going to ask, are we going to talk about Revan? Because that's the only character I really stand out with in the Old Republic.
The thing is, I guess they say the biggest part of the Sith after the Hyperspace Wars, was about 1,300 years after the Hyperspace Wars, which was Exar Kun. I think you heard that name before.
Yes, Exar Kun sounds familiar. Yeah.
Exar Kun, he was a knight of the Jedi Order.
Right.
He was very powerful. He was, at that time, he was the most powerful lightsaber duelist ever, and he was the first one that was able to do a double-bladed lightsaber for the Jedi. He was the only one at that time, too. But the thing is, he modified his lightsaber that he can shorten or lengthen each separate blade during combat just by pressing a button on his lightsaber. So he can make one longer than the other, and he was the only one that was able to fight and be able to predict when to do it and how to do it.
Yep.
And the thing is, his power, he wanted knowledge so bad, he decided, obviously going out to outer realms, he found Sith holocrons, was studying it. Those Sith holocrons, a couple of them had the essence of Marka Ragnos. That's what corrupted him, that knowledge, because Marka Ragnos was also the ancient Sith at that time. He was already dead at this time, but he left his essence, his soul, in these Sith holocrons. And when Exar Kun found him, it corrupted him. It was the first time one of the most powerful Jedis and masters got corrupted to become a Sith. Mm-hmm. Because that really never happened before. We had him leave, and eventually they did it, but not still in the Jedi Order and get corrupted at the same time.
Yeah, which it's great that you mentioned weird. Well, not weird, because double bladed lightsabers are almost as common as anything nowadays. Yeah. But I'm happy that you mentioned about customized lightsabers and weird stuff like that, because we do actually get a few in the High Republic. Now that you mention it, we do have, of course, the crossguard. There's also a modified crossguard where somehow the energy still does kind of link together at the bottom, which I don't know how that is tactically, but aesthetically it looks nice. Yeah. And then the other one is that there is a main character in, I think, 2 of the books. One of the books was just released, and some of the comics named Vernestra Rowe, who has a laser whip, or a lightsaber whip. It can turn into a whip, which is usually only used by the Sith, and that's why it's it's her big secret that she doesn't tell anybody. Yeah. But yeah, and I mean, they'll probably be introducing more soon. However, that's what I feel like they were kind of using for the Old Republic as inspiration, because I mean, I've seen pictures of lightsabers from the Old Republic, and I know there's saber pikes and saber staffs and stuff like that, where it gets all crazy and everything. So yeah, that's what I'm hoping they explore a little more in the High Republic, or if we do eventually get an Old Republic thing, they explore that more. But yeah.
And it's the thing is too. I don't know if it's true because I haven't read all the books, but there's a rumor that Exar Kun died because he got betrayed by a couple of his dark side apostles. He got betrayed on Yavin 4, and the thing is, before he died, he committed a dark Sith ritual where he sacrificed his whole entire army, everybody, to keep his spirit alive. So he put his spirit, in essence, in a medallion that he had, and his lightsaber as well.
Yeah.
And the thing is, when the Jedi found that out, they left his medallion trapped, with their whole Jedi rituals in the temple, one of the temples in Yavin. And the rumor is they took his lightsaber and they have it in the Jedi temple somewhere hidden, obviously unmarked, buried, because they don't want nobody to find it. Because if you unite supposedly the lightsaber and the medallion together, Exar Kun will come back to life, and in the new body.
Right. Which actually they did.
I never heard. I haven't read the books. All the books. So I don't know 100% if it's actually true. Where they do have his lightsaber.
They are bringing that back to canon too, or they have brought that back to canon too. Because I know what you're talking about. Because I'm not sure if you've heard of Dr. Aphra, but there's a comic, or I think an arc actually, where she's on Yavin, and if I remember right, it is to find a medallion for an ancient Sith. They never name who it is. And then I can't remember if it happened before or after. I think it was before. She ends up finding like this Force moss that brings a Jedi back to life, but it's like literally either the arc before or the arc after. So it was heavily inspired by that rumor or myth or whatever you'd like to call it, the legend story. Even though it was a Jedi in the Force moss thing. But I suggest, for anybody watching, or for even you, Ricardo, check out Dr. Aphra. It's pretty cool. They do bring back a lot of legend stuff. I mean, Dirge was literally just brought back in the Aphra comics, only to get killed off really quick. But I mean, he's probably coming back anyways. But
okay.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. But yeah, I get what you're talking about with that, because I remember that in the Aphra comic with the cursed medallion.
Yeah. And now this is where we get to what you want to talk about. 35, about roughly, I think, is it 30, 40 years after Exar Kun? Now this is when Revan makes his appearance, because this comes the Mandalorian.
The Mandalorian.
Between the Mandalorians and the Jedi.
Yeah.
See, so you know this because you played the game, but also you probably read a lot of books about it, about the Mandalorian Wars, how it took place. How at that time the Jedi were powerful, but they were also overconfident, arrogant, and cocky, because obviously they beat the Sith into hiding in a deep space. They were beating everybody, but this is the first time they fought an opponent like the Mandalorians. Because remember, the Mandalorians, they didn't fight straight up. They fought like guerrilla warfare,
right?
Because they were just straight up warriors. They fought. They used traps, mines, anything. They used the terrain environment around them to fight. And the Jedi was the first time ever seeing that. They were losing at that time severely bad.
Why does that sound so familiar with U.S. history? I said, why does that sound so familiar with U.S. history?
I know, right? It made Jesus Christ.
No.
And the thing is, the leader of the Mandalorians at the time, which was Mandalore the Ultimate, he was the very first. I'm not sure if he was the first Mandalore, but he was, I think, not that far off. But he's the one. His goal was to create the most powerful army in the galaxy with his Mandalorians. But he knew that wouldn't happen, because if the Republic was still around at the time, because the Republic would have stopped him. So that's when he began attacking the Republic stations in the Outer Rims to try to eliminate him, because he figures if he can get rid of the Rim, they won't have no reinforcements to come to when he attacks the main Republic headquarters world. Right. But that ended up drawing the Republic attention, and that's when it wasn't just the Republic army they were fighting, but also the Jedi, because obviously the Republic and Jedi were one and the same. And like I said, but the Mandalorians were winning, because like I said, it's the first time the Jedi ever fought an adversary like that, where they fought that guerrilla warfare, where they're not used to that. They're just used to charging up their lightsaber straight ahead and fighting. That was it. Right. So it took obviously, both, not just Revan, who was a Jedi Knight at the time, to lead the Jedi on Mandalore, to win, but also his apprentice, which is Malik. Because
Yeah.
back then Malik was a Jedi Padawan. He wasn't even a knight yet. Which as everybody knows, Revan, he was a great strategic mind. He was a great duelist, force wielder. He was, I would say, like jack of all trades Jedi. He was evenly balanced in all aspects of it.
Mm-hmm.
But it was really his mind that helped him win with the strategic battles, because he learned what the Mandalorians were doing, how they were fighting, and decided to incorporate that into his battalion of Republic fighters and Jedi to fight back. And he was the one that Revan was the one that killed Mandalore Ultimate, because that's where that helmet comes from. That you remember, the iconic helmet he has.
Yeah,
that's from killing Mandalore. That's Mandalore's helmet himself.
I was gonna say that's a very Mandalorian inspired helmet, which now makes sense.
And that's directly the Mandalore, the head of the leader of Mandalore's helmet that he took after he killed him. Yeah. Because the thing is, he beat the Mandalorians at that time, but more than half of them escaped from Mandalore planet. Mm-hmm. And obviously he knew he was going to continue on, so his vow was he would never take that helmet off until he defeated every single Mandalorian in the universe. But then after that is when about, I think it was another 5-8 years after that, it's when the Jedi Civil War happens, because at that time that's when Revan and Malik both go to the dark side, become the Sith, and he becomes Darth Revan and Darth Malik.
Right.
But and you remember from the game how it happened. It's roughly the same way. Obviously, the books only tweak it a little bit.
Actually, I don't, because I was raised with a PlayStation, so I was never able to play the Old Republic, Knights of the Old Republic games.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. I'm hoping it gets released on the Switch so I can play it. But yeah.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, the only pre-Legends game, the only Legends games that I was able to play were Republic Commando and the Force Unleashed games. Yeah.
And see, the thing, how initially they started, because after the Mandalorian War, the Jedi, obviously promoted Revan to act on his own, because he had a strategic mind. So his mission, the Jedi gave him, was to because remember, at this time, still Lord Vitate was still alive, but in a spirit form. But he still had control over the Star Forge, which, remember, the Star Forge creates an endless amount of starships and droid army. So his objective mission was to go find the Star Forge and try to get it away from the Sith. And the thing is, the Star Forge it's honestly, and it's indestructible, because it was built by sentient beings, which was he was built by the Rakata. It was built about 25 centuries ago. It's lasted that long, because the thing is, it's an indestructible fortress type machine.
Yeah.
And Revan and Malik, they were close to find. They didn't find the Star Forge initially. They were close to finding it, because they were getting hints, rumors. They were going to the deepest, darkest pits of planets. The scum, the cantina bars. You listen to every single rumor, interrogating, trying to find where they're at. But the thing is, what helped is Revan, with the Foresight, he had the social power for it. He saw visions of the Sith Empire with the Star Forge and where it was at. But the thing is, he saw also a new cloaked Sith that was controlling it. He didn't see who it was, which in actuality it was him. But it was like his own premonition he was seeing.
Right.
But the thing is, when they found it, I think it's like a year later after the mission started, year later after the mission started, when they found it, Malik became so thirsty for power and the knowledge that was in that Star Forge, with it building the eternal Sith army that was already at that time, betrayed Revan and had the ship corrupt him, because it unleashed all the Sith evil that was stored, the Sith essence that was stored in that Star Forge, into him. And I mean, obviously, the Civil War there, where Darth Revan used the Star Force to build his Sith army at that time. Built all the starships, the droids, the pilot, and everything. And he ended up, since he was Sith, converted to Sith, fight the Jedi at the time. And with how powerful he was strategically, he was just winning because also he had the backing of the Star Force to constantly replenish ships, whereas the Republic, it takes however many years to build one.
Exactly.
And the Jedi Civil War lasted about, but it didn't last long. It only lasted 5-6 years. Because what happened was as the years was going on, the Jedi decided was able to come up with a plan to ambush Revan on one of his own ships. And when they bombarded his ship, he ended up getting concussed to the point where he was unconscious. So when they found that Jedi boarded the ship, which was actually Bastila Shan, who boarded the ship with her platoon of Jedi, took him back to the temple, and the Jedi Masters reprogrammed his mind, brainwashed it, to turn him back into a Jedi. Yep. Which that was the only time they've ever done that. They never done that before because that's, I wouldn't say a Sith way, but it's not the
very
Jedi
immoral.
Way
it's very immoral. Yeah.
But that's what they did. Because they were scared of him, or afraid of him saying a Sith with the Star Forge. So they brainwashed him to turn him back into the light side.
Mm-hmm.
But then after that was obviously when he became Jedi, that's when he went back to fighting for the Jedi side. He ended up winning the Jedi Civil War by killing Darth Malak and freeing he shut down the Star Forge. He didn't, like I said, he couldn't destroy it because it was indestructible, but he freed it from the Sith hands and placed it in hiding in the deep, darkest pits of outer rim, where nobody could find it. But then at that time, that was also too, Revan was having visions of the Sith Empire being reformed in the Forbidden Outer Realm, which has never been discovered because it's too far out. Right. But then that was where the Sith hiding. So obviously he took a ship by himself, and went out there, and that's when he disappeared because nobody ever saw him again. And we find out in the books later on, there was Sith hiding out there, Sith Emperor. He got captured and was being kept there and drained of his life force to feed the Sith, which ended up becoming what I think you've heard this name as Darth Nihilus.
Nihilus, yeah.
Nihilus.
Yeah.
He was the one that found Revan out in that realm, captured him, and was draining him of his life force. Remember, Darth Nihilus' power is the hunger. Everywhere he went, he drained planets of life force, energy, Jedi, everything.
Yep.
He was one that captured Revan out there.
Which, really quick side note, I have a theory that the Nihil are named after Nihilus. I mean, I know they both mean to literally care about nothing and do nothing, but I have a theory that the Nihil are decided to name themselves after Darth Nihilus, and that's why I think they have some sort of Sith connection. But that's just a theory. I'll make a video about that later. I'm not going to cut in on a podcast about my crazy conspiracy theories.
Hey, you can, but it'd be weird,
yeah. But yeah. Yeah, no. Durasteel, or jet fuel doesn't melt Durasteel.
Oh, yeah.
Or there we go. Coaxium doesn't melt Durasteel. But yeah, no. So yeah, and then I know does the old Republic MMO, does that take place after Coder, or is that before Coder?
The MMO.
Yeah.
It takes after. Well, I didn't really play the MMO, but I believe it happens before Coder.
Okay. Yeah, because I wasn't sure because
before Coder, because I remember in the game of screenshots, Darth Vitate is in the game.
Right. Yeah.
And Coder, he's already dead, and he's locked in his homeworld, his spur form, because if he leaves it, it'll disappear, vanish.
Right. Okay. Yeah, because I was never sure about that, because for some reason I remember somebody telling me that the girl that has the double-bladed lightsaber, I think something Sean, was Revan's daughter or granddaughter or descendant or something, but I'm probably wrong at that.
He had a son. He had a son or daughter, because he ended up marrying Bastila Shan.
Yeah, because that's why I thought.
With the Jedi.
I'm gonna pull that up really quick because that's why I thought, because they made a Lego figure of her, and that's the only reason why I remember that.
Yeah, and his descendants, some of them became Jedi, but some didn't follow the Jedi path. One of them became a Jedi historian, a librarian.
Mm-hmm.
One of his I think it was his granddaughter or grandson, one of the two.
Oh, that looks really okay. Now I'm window shopping on this. Oh wait, no, I typed in Coder, not the Old Republic. That's why.
And then it was after that Jedi Civil War. There's about 250 years of peace because, with Star Forge being hidden, no more Sith at that time because the Sith at the time before was just Darth Revan and Malak.
Right.
And then Darth Nihilus. But Darth Nihilus kept himself because he just wanted the life force hunger. He only cared about that. He didn't care about ruling the planet, galaxy. He just wanted to feed his hunger.
Right.
So about 250 years after that, the Republic and Jedi had peace because still the Sith Empire was also in hiding. Just there was no Sith Emperor at that time.
Stally, S-T-A or S-A-T-E-L-E, Sean. That's the character I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that Revan's granddaughter?
Yes.
Okay. So then some of the Old Republic takes place afterwards. Because I was going to say, I didn't hear a mention of Darth Malgus at all, which was a surprise for me.
Well, yeah, he takes place, but he's like very in the beginning because the thing is he develops the rule of two.
Okay. So him and Darth Bane do that. Okay.
Yeah, him and Darth Bane, they develop the rule of two.
Okay.
Which is one emperor, one apprentice.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, because that's like the most knowledge I have about that because that cinematic for that is amazing. I'm just gonna say that the whole Darth Malgus and Stally Sean fight, or Satellite or Satel, whatever, however you want to say it. That whole fight is just phenomenal. To watch every time. I have to watch it at least once a month just to get my rocks off.
Oh, God.
Just because it's so awesome. That's one thing I know the Old Republic did right is their cutscenes.
Oh, yeah, obviously.
Being somebody that can't play it on his computer, just that's how I can get my information across on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to wrap up. So obviously, the Old Republic is great. The High Republic is still pretty good. I do suggest anybody who hasn't read any of the content, because it is all just books and comics right now, at least pick up the first few comics. They're pretty interesting. Even the kid ones, the High Republic Adventures, are pretty good. I do recommend Light of the Jedi. It is the first book in the series, and it is a great start off to a series. Any High Republic Old Republic recommendations?
I would. It's called like I said, the book's called Birth of the Emperor. It's what the book's called, and it talks about the Sith begin not just how I told you the first Emperor of Lord Vitate, but it talks about Marka Ragnos' beginning, the Sith's early beginning. And if you want to start, a good place to see the origins of the Sith in the Old Republic and the detailed, plan of how they did everything and planned everything out. Check out the book Star Wars: The Birth of the Emperor.
Awesome. All right, so I'll ask you on here, since that's tradition. Next month, do you want to do Fallen Order versus Force Unleashed? Since both the games kind of take place, they're similar games, not really, but they're kind of similar. One you feel like a god, the other you feel like an actual character. And then,
yeah, basically.
Yeah, and they both take place around the same time. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. It's That Nerd Ryan, and
Carlo.
We are the We're the Legends versus Canon podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed. Stay tuned next month for Fallen Order versus Force Unleashed.